Hello, hello, hello. It looks like we are live. Welcome, everyone. I know there's not a huge number of people here, 6 people. Say hi in the chat if you can see me. For some reason, this always has a little bit of a delay between OBS, which is what I'm actually streaming on, and you guys seeing it. So, hey, how are you? Let me know if the sound's okay, all that usual jazz, and we can start talking some Apple stuff. First of all, thank you very much to Evan Rogers, who managed to super chat before we'd even started because he couldn't make it, and then he's here anyway. Evan, love you. Thanks so much. But yeah, what is going on in the world of Apple that you guys want to talk about today? I just checked on Apple Track, and they've had no new articles up for a week, which is not boding well for the amount of news that we've got. Obviously, we'll be talking about some of the stuff that's been going on in terms of those MacBook Pro tests, all that sort of stuff. Evan is saying the camera's being wonky. I know it will move around a little bit. Let me know if there's an issue other than that. It will be one of those because it's a tracking camera. Do let me know if there's any other issues that I need to know about. But as long as the sound's working and stuff, we can kind of get into it. Yeah, do like doing these live streams. Yeah, let me know any questions that you've got in the chat. Not sure how long we're going to do today, but we're here for an hour if needs be. Might be shorter, might be longer. We'll see. But yeah, there's not a huge amount of stuff going on at the minute. Obviously, we've got MacBook Airs that we're hoping we'll be seeing fairly soon. In terms of in terms of the pre-orders going live and knowing when we're going to be receiving these things, which will be great. Very hopeful that those will be here soon. I think we now have everything in place for Project 91, which is good. So we've received the LCD converter board so that we can use the iPad display in it. Obviously, I've got the actual hardware itself. I am hopefully going to do a mechanical keyboard with a repaint that's got the retro colours so it kind of matches. And it might be without the legends on the keys, so it kind of gives it that clean look. But hopefully we'll still get the RGB coming through from the key backlights. So we will see about that. Oh, flash tones are a bit greenish. Okay, let's see if we can fix that. Thank you for letting me know, because it's always good to know what's going on. Let's have a look here. It might be the weird lighting that I've got going on, but we will see if we can sort that. Oh, that's more greenish. That might be a little bit more. Hopefully that is. Oh no, that's purple. Let's go to about there and just assume that that's better. Cool. Certainly looks better to me anyway. But Bob, thank you very much. Megan, hey, how you doing? Daisy in the Rain, hello, thank you so much for being here. Evan Rogers, what excites me about Apple AR and VR? Really just seeing what they are going to do with it, because nobody seems to have a compelling reason for it yet. At the moment, it seems to be chats and some gaming, but gaming that doesn't seem that compelling at the minute when you think about what we've sort of been told is going to be the way that virtual reality changes our lives. But there we go. I'm just trying to kind of work out what Apple will do with it. I think it's going to be different to what anyone else is doing. I think that's going to be a big part of it is just the fact that they are going to do something very different with AR and VR. And I'm not excited about any of the stuff that's out there at the minute, but I am excited to see what Apple does with it. It's the same as with folding phones. At the minute, I see no reason for them. They don't seem to solve anything. It seems to be trying to find a way to use the technology that exists, if that makes sense, as opposed to finding a compelling reason to have a folding phone. It's just that we can make one, so let's do that and explore what it should do afterwards. And that would be what I would say. So, Don Bullock, welcome. Thank you, sir. Rick Bryant, greenish low lighting, not sharp. I was hoping that. I mean, it's very bright in here, if I'm honest. So it's weird that it's coming through as low lighting, because I've got a big old LED panel over here, which you can probably make out the difference here. Megan, can you comment on the weird rumours surrounding the next Apple Watch? I've seen a lot of clickbaity videos saying that we will all be disappointed. What's going on? Okay, so from what I can understand, I don't think it's going to be disappointing in any way, shape or form, but from what I understand about it, it looks like it's going to be using, again, a kind of a rehash of the existing chip that we had in the Series 7, which was basically a rebadged version of the Series 6 chip. So I think there is going to be not a great deal more performance to it. However, does it need to be any faster? I don't think there's anyone that thinks the Apple Watch should be, I don't know, rendering stuff or anything along those lines. I think the watch itself is fast enough. I think what we need is different features being added to it, whether that's sensors or the sleep tracking being better, or having more accurate, which is the more accurate sports tracking, which is something that we've been told is coming in this version of WatchOS already, with how you're running it being analysed and being kind of coached in terms of your actual techniques and things. I think that's kind of what is more useful from the Apple Watch at this point. It does look, however, like we might be getting that redesign, we might be getting the flat sides. I've said for a long time, and I still think it's the case, everyone keeps waiting for this rugged Apple Watch. I'm pretty sure the Series 7 design was that rugged version that everyone has been talking about. And even now, Apple is releasing new ads for the Series 7 with like tennis balls bouncing off of it, talking about how rugged it is. I mean, surely they're telling you all of this stuff. One thing I can't imagine for the life of me is the idea that Apple would make some kind of rubber-coated G-Shock style version of the Apple Watch. They look horrific. It doesn't fit with anything else that Apple does design-wise. Just doesn't make any sense at all. I think if they were going to do something that was ruggedized in terms of using, plastics, polycarbonates, it would probably look more like AirPods or something along those lines, using that kind of white chunky plastic, maybe, but I don't see it. Welcome, Alkutba. How are you? Terry Clare, any new info on blood sugar readings on Apple Watch? Pretty sure it's not going to be getting blood sugar, like non-invasive blood sugar, for the next 3 years, something along those lines. And when it does come, I really don't think that it's going to be the way that everyone is kind of talking about it. I anticipate that everyone will say what a disappointment it is when it comes out, because it won't be something you can use therapeutically. It'll be something that you can use to give yourself a guideline on how your body is processing sugars in terms of optimizing for sports, but not in terms of treating for diabetes. What it will be very, very useful for, and this is coming from my kind of experience with my son having diabetes, type 1 diabetes, so we are kind of involved in that space a little bit. But he has a Libra sensor that he wears on one arm, and that has to be replaced every 2 weeks. And that inserts a small fibre into his arm, which is what basically reads the blood sugar levels. What I would expect is that it will give you a ballpark. Maybe it will give it within kind of half a unit of glucose within the blood, not the way that kind of we have to have it within sort of 0.1, and then you kind of base your dosing on that. I think it will be more of a, here's your trends over time, and you can see that, your average blood glucose is in the 15s or 20s, where it should be between 4 and 7 for most healthy people. And that would be a really good indicator that you should go and see a doctor, because you will probably be diagnosed then, rather than going into hospital in ketogenic acidosis, something like that, where you end up in a coma, and that tends to be how diabetes is generally diagnosed in most people. So that's my thoughts anyway. I think it's going to be much more general, and not, if it is an optical sensing way of doing it, that is a lot more difficult to do that than kind of measuring the colour of blood based on how oxygen rich it is through the skin, which is kind of what the blood oxygen saturation does. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if there's any follow-ups to that. Hopefully that's useful information. Megan, I think the tech community maybe focuses on chip speed too much. Speaking from a non-techie person, I'm much more interested in new features and design. Thanks for your perspective. Well, you're very welcome. Evan Rogers, Apple could go more rugged if they moved the Apple Watch to an industrial design aesthetic. So are we talking about the flat sides here? Because I don't think that's going to be that much more rugged, and I certainly don't think it would be sold as rugged. I think it would be sold as being, in line with the new design style that Apple uses now. Now, there is an argument to be made that having the flat sides and something along the lines of the iPhone, your stainless steel edging on here does protrude above the level of the glass, but not really much at all. It does mean, though, that if you drop it, unless there's anything on the ground that it falls onto, specifically protruding, then you're not actually going to break your display, which is important. But obviously that's not the way that watches get worn. It might be you bump against a corner of a building or something like that. But yes, I mean, I do think it could be made more rugged. Maybe it comes out as an Apple Watch Pro. I wouldn't mind if they did Apple Watch Pro for the higher end materials, just like the iPhone Pros have the stainless steel versus iPhone having aluminium, which is like what we have for the sports version at the moment. That would kind of make sense to me too. Evan Rogers, can you discuss your thoughts on SSD Gate? Now, I was listening to the 95 Mac podcast today, and Ben, who's one of the presenters on there, who is a British guy who's also a programmer, developer, he was talking about the fact that I don't think it's going to affect people in real world situations in any kind of meaningful way. The one thing that I think it might cause issues with is people that are using the lower RAM configurations, the lower unified memory configurations, because the way that Apple Silicon works and tends to be as usable as it is, even with the lower unified memory configurations, is the quick swap. So obviously if that's going to be slower, that is going to be far more noticeable, that it might feel like it's chugging if you are filling up that physical memory. So if I'm looking at my system right now, even with this going on, encoding the video live and everything else, my CPUs are all of the cores are sitting around 30%. My GPU is basically switched off, I think is probably the best way of describing it. Memory, we are using 64%. This is the 8 gig model. Right now, what do I have running? I've got Photoshop, Final Cut, QuickTime, Mail, Notes, Calendar, Messages, Email, Twitter, which is on screen, OBS, and obviously Safari with a few tabs open. There's very little memory pressure here to say that we're doing that. So we've got 2.85 gigs of compressed memory, 1.18 gigs of active memory, and 2.26 gigs of wired memory. And I guess wired memory, in fact, most of that memory is being taken up by Photoshop, which is running in the background, and that's using 3.8 gigs. So let's just close Photoshop, because I'm not using it actively. That's ironic. That's still got the T detection blue screen of death sitting on there, which I thought was quite amusing for myself yesterday. Did anyone pick that up in the little advert in yesterday's video, that I'd actually made a custom blue screen of death? Because I was really pleased with it, I have to say. There we go, memory almost empty now. So I don't think the SSD transfers, because if you've only got a 256 gig SSD, you're not going to be doing huge file transfers between different places, because you haven't got a huge file system to transfer it between, to and from. So that doesn't make too much sense. I do think if you are doing heavier duty editing on it, then you will notice a difference. But again, if you're buying this, it's not for heavy duty editing. I might be using an M1 for my full-time editing machine, but I also don't do particularly heavy duty editing. All of my stuff's put out in 1080p because I don't think there's any real need to see me in more detail for Apple News. So yeah, I just don't think there's any need. I don't think it's even an intentional thing. I think it's probably a case of, because of the supply chain shortages, Apple were able to get their hands on 256 gig modules, maybe not 128s, quickly enough, and just switch them out. However, the guys over at Mac Rumors, from what I understand of their last podcast, they were getting the very different results when they did these tests, and they were getting exactly the same speeds as they got with M1 in terms of SSD. So I think there might be a mixture out there of 128 pairs and 256 single NAND models, and I don't know what the mixture is. It just seems like there's a lot of the reviewers seem to have got, or the first batches seem to have got those 256 single NAND models. So that's my thoughts anyway. I don't think it's a massive issue. Very much like the heat thing, which we'll come to, I'm sure. Uncle Ba, on the road, thank you for stopping off to watch the live stream. I do hope you're not driving. James Apple's here. Hello, gents. Will we get 3 Apple events in the fall like 2020? Because we've got a lot of products dropping like bombs, even for January. I think we'll probably get 2. And then 1 in January. That makes sense, because it does look like we will probably be getting stuff like that. It looks like that might be when we get the reveal of the AR VR headsets. Bob Schaff saying Apple should never have issued a 256 gig machine in 2022, especially on one chip. 256 is absolutely adequate for the vast majority of people. Most people do most of their work now online, Google Docs. You can use cloud storage for images, pictures, photo libraries, all that sort of stuff. The majority of stuff can live in the cloud now, so it is a usable machine for the vast majority of people. Of course, the people that watch tech videos like this tend to be far more, heavy-duty users than the vast majority of people out there. I think Apple could probably put out a MacBook SE with 128 gigs and it would still be usable. Just want to shout out 4th of July 1776, a super sticker, I think they're called, for $9.99. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. The super stickers are if you don't want to put in a message or something to be read out, but I do really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, hopefully the video's looking a little bit better now. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that side of things. I think we'll probably get the 2 events. I think we'll get September, October, and then I think we might get some product drops that are outside of events as well, because there's a lot of products to come out, but I also think that there's a lot of these products that don't need to be event mentioned at this point, because there was no need for the MacBook Pro 13-inch to actually really be one of those event things. I think it's just the fact that it came out at the same time as the M2 as the first device with the M2. Really, the MacBook Air with its redesign was more important. If they'd done a website refresh of the MacBook Pro 13-inch, I think that would have been adequate, because there's nothing else particularly new about it. It's just, we've talked about the chip, we already know what the device is. Do we actually need to have a full conversation about how that works? I don't think we do. And I think the same can now be said for the iMac. When that gets upgraded to M2, that can easily be a website refresh. We've had the redesign, we've had all of that. We don't need to have a full event when that gets done. If the Mac Mini's not changing form factor at all, then that can be done in the same way if it's just getting M2. If it's getting M2 Pro as well, which is what the kind of rumours seem to be pointing to at the minute, then that's great. And that would probably get some stage time, because it's now the most powerful Mac Mini we've ever had, by a decent chunk. And I think that Apple will probably put that M2 Pro into an iMac as well. I think that would be a really good place for it to go. 24-inch iMac with M2 or M2 Pro. And then if you want to go up to M2 Max or M2 Ultra, that's when you move up to your studio. So you can get the iMac with both the M2 and the M2 Pro the same as the Mini. That would make sense. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that one, because I haven't seen anyone else talking about that online. Nobody seems to have mentioned really the iMac, apart from a handful of people saying that they might wait until 3nm with the M3, but I don't see that happening. I'd also say I don't think that Apple's going to have any constraints with the M2 chips. M2 Pro, M2 Max, maybe. We'll see. But yeah, I think we're probably safe on the M2 at the minute, at least being the 5nm chips too. And then I do think there's a reasonable chance that we could be getting M2 Pro and M2 Max MacBook Pros by the end of the year. I know that Max Tech and a few of the others have been saying they think spring. Mark Gurman still thinks it's possible by the end of the year. And I think I trust Mark Gurman over those guys. They're great at doing testing, but they're not great at the predictions as much. I'm not great at the predictions either, but I think I tend to justify my thoughts reasonably well. You may disagree. Very quiet in the chat today. We've got 31 people watching, but nobody's talking to me. What have you got questions-wise? What are the topics that are on your lips about Apple right now? Are you interested in the iPhone stuff? Is that what you want to talk about? Talk about Macs? I could talk about Macs all day long. But just let me know in the chat if you've got anything that you would like to know about in particular. It looks like we've got more antitrust stuff coming. The UK government seems like they want to curtail things from various different places. You know, I think they're getting annoyed with the App Store and its commission levels, which nobody else antitrust wise seems to care about how much the commission is. They just want the options. Evan Rogers is saying no 3nm until fall of 2023. I don't see it coming in the I mean, we could still get 3nm for the M2 Pro and M2 Max. That I'm not saying that you can't, and I think that the chips would be ready, because all they would need to do, if everything else is ready, just literally stick it straight into the chassis that they've already got. I don't think the lead times would be as long as everyone thinks. They've already done plenty of test runs with these things, and I'm sure they have that ready to go if that's what they want to do. I'm not convinced that that the timescales that Max Tech were talking about are accurate, because Vadim seemed a little bit confused between customers being Apple or the people that buy laptops from Apple in terms of the timescales that were being talked about. July 4th is saying, what have you heard about the Apple production in China? Peter Zinn says that this fall Apple will be unable to produce more iPhones, etc. I think Apple has started to diversify this a little bit into a couple of other locations. So India is now producing iPhones as well, although I think it's mainly the SE models and some of the lower end models. The Pros seem to stay a little bit higher up. Yeah. I don't think we're going to have supply constraints. There was one model that was behind a little bit. And I think that model is probably the 14 Max, the non-Pro Max, which is the first time we're going to be having this. And I wouldn't be surprised if the panels for that become a little bit of a bottleneck, because they haven't done this size before. It's a new panel. I know the Pros are getting smaller bezels, and obviously they're getting the pill cutouts instead of the notch this time, so that's going to be a little bit different. I think that is probably more likely to be the area where delays happen, if anywhere. I don't think it's going to be within chips. I don't think it's going to be assembly or anything like that. But we will see. I think we will get everything, but there might be some constraints in terms of delivery times after the initial launch, perhaps. But I think that's also going to depend on how compelling the new iPhone 14 is, because at the moment we know that it's probably going to get last year's Pro version of the chip, which is the 5 GPU version of the A15, probably with a different badge on it. But it depends how much other stuff they add to the base model, which, from the looks of things, isn't getting that many additions. There might be some software locked features that we just obviously won't know about until the event. That's probably what they're going to do. So we don't know what the demand's going to be like for the 14. I think the 14 Pro, if it does get the 8K video recording, which is 48 megapixels, that might be one of the more compelling things. But that's also potentially going up $100 price-wise. So there's a lot of stuff to look at there. So Vietnam is another supply chain location for Apple, according to James Apple. I think they mainly do accessories, mainly AirPods and stuff. But yeah, it could well be helpful. And I think Apple is encouraging all of their suppliers to look outside China as well now. Let's see what else we've got here. Mark is saying, I don't know if you've touched it, but on UK Amazon, the M2 Pro is $100 off, which is unheard of for Apple. Interesting. I don't know if that's because of any of this backlash. I would doubt it, because I don't think the vast majority of people hear about it. But it might simply be that Apple is allowing them to do this. If that is the case, then that's great, because the M2 chip in the MacBook Pros is not a binned version, which it is in the base model MacBook Air. So it's actually a better performing device at the price of the MacBook Air, I guess. So that's not a bad shout. Thank you for letting me know on that one. Don Bullock is watching NASCAR at the same time as me. Is NASCAR the one where they just go like in a big circle? Just autopilot. I don't know why that. I mean, that's a great place for Tesla autopilot to come in. That should be pretty simple. Evan Rogers, Apple looks to be immune to the current smartphone slump. Reports a 50% increase in Chinese iPhone 14 pre-orders. The iPhone 14s have been doing really well in terms of pre-orders, but also I think they just had a big holiday, and like at least half of the phones that were sold on this massive shopping day. I think is it Singles Day in China? It's basically like their Amazon Prime Day or whatever. But yeah, like over half of the phones that were sold on that day were iPhones. Just bonkers. So I guess China's going to get to the point where they're actually rivaling the US for the most market penetration. That'd be incredible for Apple. Apparently people in China pre-order phones before they're announced. I would say if it's pre-orders for iPhone 14s, it's going to be retailers or pre-ordering them from Apple, because they know that stuff's going to come. But I wouldn't expect that that's consumer pre-orders. But you might have been just pulling my leg there, Evan. Don Bullock, I haven't seen a predicted yield rate on 3nm, except some say it's low. Have you seen any more information? I haven't specifically, but I would guess that's the reason that M2 was put onto 5nm. I don't know, because, I mean, it could just have always been intended to be this. We don't know enough about what's going on behind the scenes. Probably in 5 years we'll get, like, someone brings out a book that tells us what was actually happening at the time. That'll be really interesting to know, but it doesn't help us right now. James Apple, will you get the purple iPhone 14 Pro Max? If they actually do the purple that we've been hearing about, yes. Assuming it looks good, because some of the colour versions they've done for the Pros have looked pretty horrendous, like the mum's kind of Toyota blue that they've done last year. Not great looking. Bob Schaff, what are Apple's plans for ARM version 9? Assuming they're going there, does the current license cover it, or will they have to renegotiate? Apple have got a perpetual license, I believe, for everything that ARM does, and the vast majority of what ARM v9 is adding in the features that Apple have done on their own personal fork of ARM, so that everyone else can use it. So actually, there's not a huge amount in ARM v9 that Apple will be adding to their chips, because they've already got most of it. ARM v9 is a catch-up for everyone else to basically what Apple has got. Now, there are some performance improvements that would come with ARM v9. I would guess it'll be the next generation of A series chips. It might be that it gets announced this year with the A16. Maybe. I mean, I'm kind of assuming that this A series chip, the A16 when it comes out, is actually going to be on a different process and probably on ARM v9. And the reason that I think that is, otherwise, why wouldn't they have just produced these for the iPhone 14 as well? If the Pro phones are getting it, there must be a reason that they haven't put it across the board. And I have a feeling that that might be because the yields are lower, and so that's why they're continuing with the previous version of the chip in the 14s. That kind of makes sense to me. But we will see. In that way, it also kind of lines up with what happened with the iPhone 5S and 5C generation. When Apple went to 64-bit, they also brought out the 5C, which continued with the 32-bit architecture. So if there's a big enough change in the way that the chips work, it might make sense for them to not roll that out across all the chips immediately, because it then gives them that little bit of kind of buffer zone if there's any issues. It's not across 220 million iPhones, it's across maybe 50 million, 60 million. Siri has been taking dictation throughout this, so that's fun. Right, let's have a quick look here. Don Bullock, this one is a road course. Oh, okay, so NASCAR go on actual tracks as well, not just those weird stadium round things from cars. Cool. Pacific Blue or Sierra Blue? Which colour isn't all that? Sierra Blue. Pacific Blue was the first one. That looked awesome. This year's one, the Sierra Blue, just looked like a, you know, like a minivan. Mark Ruff, hi Dave. Hey, how are you doing? Yeah, so it's a little bit of a weird situation at the minute with the iPhones. I'm a little bit confused about why we have these issues that we have, in terms of going between the two chips, but that's the only thing that kind of makes sense for me, is they're doing some sort of big change, and yeah, I think it's going to be a little while yet, before we know exactly why. But all of a sudden, I think we'll have the announcement, and everyone will be like, oh yeah. I mean, we are also hearing that satellite communications may well be coming this year, which we heard, like, a week before the last event, that it might have been revealed then. This is an interesting thing because I think it is Globalstar that they're using. It makes the most sense. Globalstar have thrown up all those extra satellites. All of a sudden, they've got this client that they haven't mentioned who it is. We don't know any real details, but they did have $300 million to throw at it for extra satellites. So that makes the most sense to me. They also get about 80% coverage of the entire surface of the Earth. So apart from the poles, I would guess, because like a nice inclined orbit, you kind of you sweep across the whole surface pretty quickly. And the coverage looks quite good, to be fair. So, what have we got down here? We've got Evan Rogers. Do you think contact lens computers / AR and VR will ever be a thing? I think once we get to contact lens computing, absolutely. I do think Apple Glass is kind of the stepping stone. I think that's the point where it will become more mainstream. I think that would be really good. There is a way that you can kind of do overlay with that. I think there is a way that you can pass current across an eyeball, because obviously you've got a liquid surface, so I guess you could probably do that. It might feel a bit weird, but that would mean that you haven't got to worry about as much about having batteries on board, I guess. I don't think it's going to look as cool as Batman's ones immediately, but I'm sure it will get there. How it gets there, I'm not 100% sure yet. Mark Graff is saying that he got a 43-inch TV, very happy with it. Yeah, this is what we were talking about, I think, on last week's show, talking about the fact that I use a 40-inch TV as my main display over here, which if I turn this way, you can probably just about get you can get the edge of it in. But you'll also start to get the lights above it, and stuff like that. But yeah, I use a 40-inch TV over here as my main display, and then I've got a 21-inch over here. The old 40-inch that was sitting above this one is now on the wall vertically over there, so I've got a little bit more space on the worktop, because that's where Project 91 is going to happen. If anyone doesn't know what Project 91 is, let me know in the chat and we can talk through it again. But yeah, that's all a little bit better over here. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. I think 4K on a 40 to 43-inch display, taking up your entire desk space, is a really good way of doing it. And it's just so much more practical for me than the ultra-wides that everyone keeps harping on about being really productive. It's not as productive as a 4K full-on display, because you're now getting twice. You're getting two ultra-wides stacked on top of each other. That's what I've always sort of thought of it as, and I was really glad that I made this this choice, which was 18 months ago, I guess, when I just got the Mac Mini. James Apple is being wrong about Sierra Blue being a good colour. That's not true, James. But Alpine Green, I've not seen those in person, actually. I do need to see them in person. I might have to pop to the Apple store next week. Bob Schaff saying contact lens computers might mean private porn. Might help some of the MPs in the Tory party at the moment. They have not had a good time with people looking over their shoulders at telephones recently, as regards that. James Apple, the CEO of Nokia, said smartphones will be extinct in the next decade and AR glasses are the future. Yes, but given the successes of Nokia over the past few years, I wouldn't take his word on too much as far as smartphones go. And bear in mind as well, it's definitely, it's one of these things where if you're not doing well with phones, you can quite easily say, oh yeah, but they're nearly done anyway, so it doesn't matter. You will focus on the next thing, because then you can potentially catch up with what's been going on. I don't see it. I think the smartphones are still going to be around for a while. Okay, everyone's ganging up on me now and saying that Sierra Blue is awesome. Okay, I'm going to go and have to play with it in person, but... Okay, I'll get to the Apple Store. I'll go and make a little video of how good they look in the real world. Just for you guys. Because that's the kind of guy that I am. Okay, so Uncle Buzz got the Sierra Blue. Evan Rogers says it's the prettiest one yet. Joe says the Sierra Blue is the best. Alright, guys. What's going on here? Like, I thought you were on my team. James Apple, I've seen a few of the streets with the Alpine Green. However, I see more Sierra Blue on the streets. It's been on sale for much longer. Of course you'll see more. Evan, I won't admit my error until I've seen it in person and had a look at it. I thought it looked alright on the thing, and then everyone said that it's awful. But I just assumed that those people had one. Okay, I need to go and find it. We will do that. And I'll take you with me. Now, I'm going to be in the city a little bit next week, which is good. I'm going down to London on Tuesday, which will be exciting. Not been to London for since pre-pandemic, to be honest. So that's been quite some time. I'm going to a drinks conference, where basically all of the drinks brands will be showcasing their stuff, so that'll be really good. It's called Imbibe, and we will. Mark Graff, I'm with you, Dave. I think Sierra is epoxy colour. Yes. See? Team iCave. We need an Apple Store field trip video. Okay, I'll see if I can get to... I'll see which ones I can get to. As I say, I'll be in the city at least on Wednesday next week, possibly on Friday as well. And I'll show you how pretty Birmingham's Apple Store is as well. Because it used to be a Waterstones bookstore and a bank before that. It's very nice. James Apple, they're liars bad-mouthing the Sierra Blue colour. Unbelievable. Are we gonna get factions set up? Are we gonna have fights? I tell you what, guys. Let me know down in the chat who are your favourite other tech YouTubers. Which channels do you guys watch? I was watching some Mr. Who's the Boss today. I do enjoy his editing style. I cannot work out how to do it. The quick text that's popping up on the screen, I don't know if he just makes it all in Photoshop and then puts it on there, because I can't find a way to do it myself. I'm looking at some plugins and stuff to up the production quality. I know that yesterday's video was very dry in terms of the production. It was very much just like floating head on camera. Didn't get a lot of B-roll and stuff into it. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that we're reviewing at the minute again, so I'll show you a couple of these bits while we're chatting. But throw in your favourite YouTubers down in the chat. I've got one of these Devooms, which I think this is awesome. Have you guys seen these before? I know most tech YouTubers seem to have one, but they sent them over. It's surprisingly loud, and it's like a pixel art display, and it's got a Bluetooth speaker inside, which actually sounds really good. You've got proper clicky little switches. You've got your time, a few different bits that you can throw on the screen. But the audio on this, it sounds awful on their own little clips that they put on it. However, when you pair it to your phone, I would say this is on a par audio-wise with like a HomePod Mini, and that surprised the hell out of me. 8 hours of battery, it's pretty good. Right, let's see who we're watching. So, Max Tech, Talos of Tech, surrounded by Gamermeld? Don't know Gamermeld, I might have to check that one out. LTT, Everyday Dad, Greg's Gadgets. So, Everyday Dad and Max Tech, big blow up on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw it. I did mention it in yesterday's video, but Everyday Dad was doing the 8K renders on Canon RAW and finding no dramas whatsoever. Didn't get above 48, 50 degrees on his system, whereas Max Tech got to their 108s with the fans going full belt. So it seems like they found a very strange little edge case that is not necessarily representative, which, you know, it's an interesting thing that it happens, but is it actually a relevant thing to the majority of people that might want to buy one of these MacBook Pros with M2 inside? I'm not sure. Because again, if you are buying an M2 MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, it's not there for throwing 8K video at. That's the biggest issue for me, is that they're using it in an unrealistic way for this device. So yeah. Right, what have we got here? We've got a bunch of stuff coming in now. So that was Evan Rogers' list. So that was Max Tech, Tailosive. Tailosive Tech is one that I've watched for many years as well. Dropped him a bit of cash on a super chat the last time I was watching him, because he is one of the guys that kind of inspired doing the everyday posting as far as possible, at least. I do my best on it. But he works hard because he's got multiple channels. He's got an EV channel, all sorts of stuff. Mark says, Luke Miani, I've not got 3 old broken iMacs that I can't fix. Oh, okay, so you've been watching for that. James Apple, MKBHD, obviously. iJustine, obviously. Your Average Consumer. Do I watch him? Is that the guy that just like talks to the camera about security stuff as well quite a lot? I think I'm thinking like Average Gamer or something. Could be confused on that one. Mark Ellis. Oh, I like his stuff. iUpdate, Front Page Tech. Yep. All makes sense. Oh, Sarambyte, Viper, Luke Miani, to name a few. Cool. Mark Graff, Watch, Marquez, Mr. Who's the Boss, Luke Miani, Vadim, Mark Ellis, Dave 2D, also Everyday Dad and Saran. So we've got a lot of crossover on this channel, I think, with some of these other guys. Evan Rogers, do you plan an IKversary stream next month? You said last year you'd do 12 hours. I'll try. I'll try and get it arranged. I've got a feeling I get back from vacation like the day of, which was the 8th, I think, last year. We might have to play around with the dates by a week or something just to fit it in. But yes, I do plan to do one. I'm not committing to 12 hours at this point, but I'm also not ruling it out. But let me know who you would want to be in said video. But if you can put it in the comments instead of the chat, that'd be amazing. Because then I can check in on that afterwards. And we'll do our best to get some of those people involved. Joe, I think you, Max Tech, Tylosive Tech, Sarambyte, Rene Ritchie. Rene Ritchie, you cannot miss out on his stuff. It's awesome. Front Page Tech, I Update Luke, MKBHD. Also been getting interested in a bit of Louis Rossmann, not going to lie. Louis Rossmann, his intentions are good. I find him uninteresting to watch. I don't know if it's just the way that his presentation is, or that he just seems down on everything. But yeah, I can't keep watching. What else have we got here? So Naked Bananas says Greg's Gadgets, I Update Rene Ritchie, Max Tech, Tylosive Tech, The Blob, keep punching Dave, couldn't care less about video quality, you know your stuff. Oh, thank you so much. Also, is my video quality that bad? I mean, everything that we do on the channel, apart from these live streams, is shot on iPhone. And I think that's fine. Like, we are talking about what's going on. We're not. I'm not somebody that does particularly beautiful videos in general. The stuff that I got sent, if you haven't watched the grid frame stuff yet, those things are amazing. I'll just bring you over. Come with me. Why is the camera not moving now? It's decided against it. Here we go. Come on, camera. So we got the grid frame stuff. Oh, microphone's over there still. So we got the grid frame stuff sent through, which, I'll just do that, and then you can see this one as well. Did a full review, but I've got to say, I do love this thing, which is the A7 chip in, like, the Perspex block. This is probably going to be too shiny for the camera, but there we go. And I think, there you go. Told you I've got a big light. But yeah, I think these are awesome. If you are after any of that stuff, great for gifts. icavedave.com/grid. Dead easy, and it helps support the channel. So just to let you know. But yeah, let's have a look. Mark Graf, hate FTP. FPT. So I've got to say, John Prosser is one of the guys that gets a lot of respect from me, especially because when we first started the channel, turns out he was someone that was watching right from the beginning. He was on the first live stream that we did and gave me my first super chat. So can't really fault the guy. And he came on last year's IKversary. He was really good fun. He's a really interesting guy. I understand why people don't all love his style on the show, but he's also very entertaining and is reaching people that shows like mine, which are a bit more techie, probably don't reach. So, different audiences, full respect to John. I like what he does. And if you hear John, just pop up in the chat. Let's see what else we got. So, Daisy in the Rain, Max Tech, Zone of Tech. Zone of Tech, interesting. Watched his stuff for ages, then went off him for a bit, came back to him just recently. He's got some good opinions, but also some very odd things on that channel. Everyday Dad, Mr. Who's the Boss, yeah, Constant Geekery, those guys again, they were on the IKversary last time. Great guys. Mark Ellis, Canoopsy. Haven't watched much of Canoopsy's stuff, although I did like it when he was on Genius Bar. Enjoyed hearing his opinions on stuff. Canoopsy needs to post more. Fair enough. Evan Rogers, August 15th, it was last year. Okay, fair enough. We might be okay then, time-wise. It might not be on the exact day. We'll probably do it on a Sunday again. Alright, 17. Do you think we'll get M2 Pro and M2 Max MacBook Pros before the end of the year? I do think we will. I'm not 100% convinced. Mark Gurman seems to think we will. And I tend to agree with him more than some of the other reports that are out there. Mark, vacation. Yeah, we're going over to Jersey. Our actual flight that was supposed to be midweek, we were supposed to be going for 4 days. Midweek flight got cancelled. We had to switch on to another flight and pay for the extra nights in the hotel, but longer holiday. That's fine. Evan Rogers, I dislike iUpdate. Sam is the worst. I laughed at him so much this week because he didn't know that, which one was it? Was it Idaho? Iowa? No. Ohio. He thought Ohio was not a state. He is American. He should know this. He went to college. It was funny, though. Joe, I understand it wasn't my cup of tea either, although occasionally makes me laugh. Is that about iUpdate? Maybe. Disappointed not one mention of me, TA Tech. Oh, hello. Welcome. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind on the messages. We'll catch up, don't worry. FTP, Uncle Bar, this is FTP, MKBHD, Luke Miani, iUpdate, Greg's Gadgets, Rennie Ritchie, Taylosive, iJustine, and Max Tech. All in caps as well, so he was shouting those at me. Did you not think I was going to notice? Alright, speaking of video quality, how fast is your internet connection? It is about 500 gigabits, which is quite nice. Mr. Smartwatch, aka me. Oh, I'm going to have to check your channel out, my friend. The Blob, you're the only one who got the scoop on the Square watching the Series 7 Apple ads. It was delayed for sure. I think somebody else mentioned it as well. And then it might have been artifacting. But I do still think that the Series 7 was what was supposed to be the rugged one, and they just switched more of the production over to that. I think they were probably producing both together and then just cut the production on the flat sides, pushed it over to that one, and I think that's probably what happened, but I'm sure that story will come out. I do think we're probably going to get the flat sides this year. Let's see what else we've got. Do you watch the Apple Circle? IK answers absolutely not. Can we get Ross Displayman? For the IKversary, I will certainly try. I am one of his super followers, so there's a decent chance, I guess. Worth an ask. Uncle Bert. Oh, and Zone of Tech and Everyday Dad. Yeah, Everyday Dad. Love his stuff. He's just like the most super down-to-earth guy. Always answers you on Twitter as well. Jojo Berita. Only thing I want to know is about my watch. Does it send the activities to all my apps like Komoot, Strava, and all that sort of stuff? Like my Garmin does via Garmin Connect app. So the way that it works with the watches is that your watch will feed into the health app. It feeds into the fitness app and the health app. And then if you authorize those other devices, those other apps to access your health data from the health app, then that's how it works. So it centralizes in the health app and then it can kind of be moved outwards from there. Hopefully that answers the question that you were asking. Don Bullock, honestly, your show is the first tech channel I watch before I watch any others. My favourite tech show is Mac Break Weekly. Oh, I mean, that's great. That's the Twit Network, so that's Leo Laporte and most often Rennie Ritchie and those guys as well. But thank you for that, Don. Thank you for the kind words. Mark, I like Greg's Gadgets too, just saying, as nobody's mentioned him yet, he's a grower. No, he's been mentioned a couple of times. I enjoy his stuff as well. Do watch their Gadget Cast. That's the one, isn't it, with Travis as well. And Travis, another really great guy. Bob Schaff, yeah, Sam Cole can be toxic. Why a gentleman like Luke Miani occasionally teams up with him is beyond me. To be honest, I think Sam's heart is in the right place. I think he, if anything, he's just young, and sometimes you say things that you don't necessarily mean, and I think that's more of it. I think his intentions are always good. I don't have any problems with Sam. I don't agree with him on everything, but yeah, I think his intent is good. Alright, 27 says, do you think we'll have a major throttling problem with the M2 MacBook Air? Nope, don't think we have that problem with the M2 MacBook Pros either. There's just been the one issue. For your internet, do you get 500 megabits per second up or down, or is it just down? It's 500 down, 75 up, I believe. But we only stream in like 720p, I believe. Joe, Apple Circle is the pinnacle of clickbait trash, and I thought Apple Explained's recent stuff was bad. Apple Explained isn't clickbait at all. Apple Explained is not designed for us. It's designed for people that don't really know a great deal. They've got some really good explainers. They've got some fantastic videos that he's made over the years, and he's got videos that are getting like 40, 45 million views. Apple Explained is doing a crazy good job of what he's doing, but again, it's not designed for us. It's not news. It's talking about the background and kind of the history of stuff, and there is some stuff that's kind of I think I would say the way that channel is made is he looks for the topics that will have traffic because people are asking those questions, and he fills the gaps. It's a very good tactic for YouTube. I would be bored by it though if I was doing it myself. James Apple, MKBHD, Mr. Who's the Boss, I update. Justine, UAC. Who's UAC? Don't know that one. Rennie, Viper, to come on the anniversary. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think Viper would probably come on. Definitely. Mr. Who's the Boss, that, and MKBHD, very big asks. I update, possibly. Obviously, we had John on last year, and I'm sure he would put a word in for us. Justine, again, huge ask. Renee, maybe. But I don't want to rule anything out. I will ask the questions as much as I can. And if any of you guys want to help me by pestering them on Twitter, that's all good too. I mean, Mr. Who's the Boss is just up the road from me. He lives like within an hour. Joe, an FTP and iUpdate's Genius Bar was literally making fun of Apple Explained. They were, and then they kind of realised and stopped. Can't disagree about the Apple Circle. Yeah, that's fair. Bob Schaff, you're a kind man. I try to be. Well, I don't see how bitching helps in most cases. We're all on here, and like when you're making YouTube videos, you kind of see a little bit different perspective on why people would make the videos that they do as well. I think that's something that is probably overlooked by people as well, but not all people. Some people should know better. James Apple, can we get Greg from Apple Explained on for IKversary? Asked him and Travis last year as well. The issue we have is sometimes if we do a Sunday, then a lot of people in the States especially tend to go to church. Not an affliction that I have, but some people seem to find that quite important. Certainly Vadim and Max are quite devout as well, I believe. Brian Data, I've been wondering whether Max Tech have an outlier machine with the heat problems they're reporting, which is why others are not consistently reporting it. I don't think it's even an issue with the machine. I think it's an issue with this particular test that they're doing, the specific Canon RAW footage that they're using with the specific LUTs that they're using. I've got a feeling that maybe plugins that they're using are not optimized for Apple Silicon as well. There might be an issue where there's some Rosetta kicking in, and that's also causing an issue. And maybe there's even just a bug in the software that they're using. I'm not sure, because Everyday Dad also was doing Canon RAW with LUTs, rendering for hours without it going above 50 degrees. So I think, yeah, that there's either a hardware bug or a software bug, or it's just a weird combination of circumstances that have caused this. But at the same time, it's their choice whether they want to make it into a scandal or report, we found this and it's a bit weird. Can anyone else replicate it? I think there's ways and means. If you have an issue with something, have they approached Apple about it? Have they said, have they raised it as a bug? Are they using beta software? Is there something else like that? Because I'm sure that these guys are also on developer program for some stuff, which means they shouldn't also be talking about it if they're on the developer program, which is why I'm waiting for the public betas when it's a little bit more reasonable to talk about issues that you might have with pre-release betas if it's a public version of it. Apple Explained is a cheat code of learning anything about Apple, says James Apple. Yeah, I agree. Like, there's a lot of background information in there. Yeah, some of the titles might make you think it's about something, and it's actually kind of gives you a different answer to what you were expecting, but it does answer the question that is posed in the thumbnail. The Blob want Apple to buy EA games already. Makes total sense with their sports offerings on Apple TV. Yeah, that's not a bad shout. I do think it would be a really good acquisition for Apple. I don't see it actually happening in the real world as great as it would be. But they also mentioned gaming at WWDC and then not many games, and they didn't have real showcases on there, which they've had in the past, so maybe it's because they were keeping quiet about something else. Let's see what else we got. Joe kind of missed the alt dad tech, but I heard he scammed 2 people on phones and ran almost immediately after. Really? I didn't know anything about that. He also came on the last IKversary. He was talking with us about the CSAM scanning stuff that was going on at the time. It was obviously a huge story at the time. And he had some thoughts on it. I don't think he was out there at all. Again, genuinely nice guy from my experiences with him. Didn't know anything about this phone thing. Don't know if that's true or not. Alright, 27, my M1 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro sitting here watching this live stream with several tabs open, running random system processes and backing up to Time Machine, sitting here running at 57. Yeah, and the M1 Max is going to run hotter than an M1 or an M2 in general. I mean, we've been streaming for quite some time here, and we're sitting at 54 degrees on the efficiency cores and 60 degrees on the performance cores. I can't hear any fans. Yeah, so I think we're absolutely fine, 60 degrees is not a problem at all. Not Greg's Gadgets. I was talking about Apple Explained. I didn't think I'd mentioned anything about that. I'm confused now, but okay. Alright, 27, if you push the CPU and GPU at the same time on the M1 13-inch MacBook Pro, you can get the fans to full blast. From experience when I had an M1 13-inch MacBook Pro, I'm sure you can. But you're buying this thing. I mean, what were you doing that was getting them to that point? That would be my question there. At the College Professor, are you getting the the MacBook Pro Air, the MacBook Air M2? I don't know why I can't read. Apologies for that. Fingers crossed is all I will say on that. Obviously, at the minute, work situation is a little bit different from how I expected, so I just want to get confirmation on what's going on with that first. Part of the reason I'm going down to this drinks conference on Tuesday in London. Now that the random system processor's finished, it's down to 48 degrees. Very nice. I've noticed that my M1 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro runs about 10 degrees hotter than my M1 13-inch did. Can Apple Explain come on the IKversary? Absolutely, if he wants to. I don't know him. I haven't had any interactions, but I'm open always. Running Cinebench and 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme at the same time is what I did to get my old M1 13-inch MacBook Pro fan to full blast. Exactly. This is not a real world situation. You're running 2 different benchmarks at the same time to try and get the fans to come on. This is exactly what Max Tech have been doing. It's basically finding the most challenging thing they can do. And they admitted that this is what they were trying to do. They were trying to get both the CPUs and the GPUs maxed out to see what would happen and if the fans would come on. And when they did, like, it was fully maxed out solidly for some time. Yeah, it's gonna throttle at that point. The 72,000 RPM fans were not enough to keep it cooler. So, Naked Bananas, I'm in London on Tuesday. Let's get a drink. I'm there at the Imbibe conference, and I will be coming back from Victoria, sort of between, I guess 6 till 7. I'll be around somewhere near Victoria. If you're free, drop me a DM on Twitter, and if you're around, sure. Bruce Grubb, do you think 256 gigs is too small for the internal drive on M1? Nope, it's absolutely fine. But I would say that I'm using this on an M1 Mac Mini, which is a desktop, so I can plug a whole bunch of external stuff into it, and I do. But I don't think the internal drive being that low is too low. And as I say, I think that for my plan would have been at least the the M2 MacBook Air base configuration, apart from the extra $100 for the fully non-binned chip, just because I would like to have like the full performance of the chip. So that would have been my plan. Having seen the issues with SSDs, might go up. Not particularly seeing the need for additional unified memory, but the storage would have been fine if it was at the same speeds. As it is, not 100% sure. Need to see how much of a difference it makes, to be honest, once people have been using the Pros for a little while, to see if we're going to have that same issue, basically. So that's the only thing that I'm not 100% sure on. But the plan is that this is what Project 91 is, right? So we are putting the M1 Mac Mini into the Macintosh Classic 2, which is just here. So, Mac Mini's going in here. It's going to be using this iPad 3. We're going to open this up. We're going to take the LCD out of it. Then I've got an LCD controller board, which will attach to this, because the display size on this is almost exactly, it's a 9.7 inch, whereas it was a 9-inch display inside. So that's what's going into there. And the idea is that all of my external storage will be attached to this with network sharing, so that I can actually use those drives from the MacBook Air. That's the plan. So at that point, for me, I don't need to have that much onboard storage, because I'm going to be able to access it from there. That's the idea with Project 91. That's what we're planning to do. Obviously, the whole thing will be pretty well documented. I've also got this, which is almond gloss. This is going to be our retro mechanical keyboard. So one of the first product reviews that I did on the channel when I first started was this KLIM mechanical keyboard. This is going to be retrofied. So we're going to dismantle this. The keycaps themselves are going to be painted. I'm hoping that we will still get some of the backlight coming through on the keys. But if we don't, we don't. We can always get new keycaps for it if that's what we need to do. But yeah, this is going to become like a retro style wired keyboard. Yeah, that's the plan. The one thing I haven't quite worked out is how we're going to do the mouse to make that look retro enough. So that's going to be an interesting one. So let's see. Brian Montero, can I see you on the panel of MacBreak Weekly? Hey, if Leo picks up the phone, I'm more than happy to come on. I don't see myself getting the phone call just yet, but you never know. Maybe one day. Benchmark LARP don't interest me, nor do a vast majority of people. Don't care as well. Yeah, I know. I think there's a level of, we need to know where it sits in comparison to other stuff, because people do want to know, like, what's the dollars per performance unit score, if you like, because I think it's a valid thing to want to know. Is this going to perform better than what I already have, or is it going to be slower? That's pretty basic stuff, and I think that's okay. It doesn't necessarily need to be 100%. I don't think we need to be comparing like your 2's 3%, but it's interesting. And there's certainly a lot of people that do care. Alright27 says, I think that people like me and Max Stack just like to see how hard we can push the machine and see what happens in the worst case scenario. Yeah, 100%. But it then depends how you present that information when you're talking to other people. If you are, yeah, if you want to push something to the absolute limits and see where that limit is, that's great. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure how important the information is about that particular 8K RAW thing, and that it throttled down so much. Yes, it throttled down. It needed to. That's fine. That's what it's supposed to do. That is failing safe. Gaylord Fokker, can't wait for this project. Yeah, it's going to be fun. James Apple move camera. I think that boat has sailed. Sorry. I only went off for a second. Alright, I find it interesting that the high power mode, all the high power mode does on my M1 Max 16-inch is remove the 3700 RPM fan cap off the fans. It doesn't even clock any higher, and it can sustain at 3700. Yeah, it's not going to overclock anything because Apple doesn't overclock. You'll notice that the chips in an M1 versus an M1 Pro, M1 Max, M1 Ultra all run at the same clock speed, and that's purely because it doesn't need to. But no, it's just basically making sure that it can keep the sustained performance, I think. Lol, benchmark LARP is from Rene. Yeah, it makes sense. I have heard him say that actually in the past. iCave on Mac Break Weekly will be a movie. Or a move, I'm assuming. That's what we meant there. Evan Rogers, do you think that aliens exist? Yes, and I don't think we'll ever meet them because I think they're too far away. That's the annoying thing, is like we might communicate with them, but it will be a very limited communication, or we might, passively communicate, i.e. pick up signals that have been broadcast by aliens of some sort, but the distances that we would have to travel, unless somehow we can undo physics and travel faster than light, we can't even communicate faster than light, so it seems very unlikely that we would ever meet them. So, I think we are getting to the point of wrapping up this stream. We've been doing an hour and 12 minutes. That's not too bad at all. My nose is getting a bit itchy. I keep having to scratch it, which is quite annoying me, if not you guys. So yeah, I guess we're going to wrap it up there. Unless anyone's got anything burning that we need to answer immediately, do let me know. Otherwise we will... Oh, Hugh Levant James, you are a little late, my friend. We are just wrapping up, but thank you for being here. Do appreciate it very much, very much. Been some time? It has. Where have you been? I've been here. But yeah, we've got a bunch of review stuff coming up. We've got some headphones, we've got some earphones, we've got the cool little retro dude. This thing is great fun, and Ted absolutely loves it. Yeah, what else? We've got a Charge Tree Swing over there. We've got a projector. We've got a Mod Mic wireless microphone that glues onto your head. We've got a doorbell, video doorbell. Projector. We've actually got the hub that's sitting under my Mac Mini. That needs to be reviewed, I guess. Yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff, so watch out for those. They'll be coming pretty cool pretty soon. Yeah, thank you all so much. First time on the channel in a while before the Grid Studio. Thanks. Good luck regarding the channel. Thank you very much. Sure grew a lot. Yeah, it has got a bit bigger. We're like 11,000, just over 11k now, which is great. And I do appreciate every single one of you, which is why we do these live streams, so that we can have a chat and hang out. I don't come with topics. I come with let's read all of your comments, and we'll just natter. So yeah, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you all so much for being here. And we will see you on Monday for the usual shows back again. Thank you so much. See you later.